Hello and welcome to NWA Presents, an intriguing and invigorating conversation with the Universal Heartthrob, Austin Idol, and NWA President and Owner, William Patrick Corgan. Austin Idol's going to be telling stories that you have never heard before, stories that have never been put on camera before about what life was really like in the territories. Let's get to it.
So, let's have a little fun. It's wrestling, we like to have a little fun.
Sure.
I'm just going to flash some things here and just I'll let you free associate.
Alrighty.
Mr. Saito and Mr. Fuji.
Well, I knew Fuji very well. I could talk all day long about Mr. Fuji.
Yeah. We can go the whole show on Mr. Fuji if you want.
I didn't know Saito very well, but Fuji.
You and Fuji had some times together.
Oh God! Well, Fuji was in New York when I got there in 1973. Fuji was there. He was.
Did he like you coming in?
Fuji? Yeah, they all liked me, and the reason they all liked me, it's not because I'm such a likable person, as you well know, but King Curtis Iakea, who'd just been in Australia, and I'd been with Curtis and Lewin and all those people, and then Barnett sold. Curtis went to New York, and by the time I got to New York, Curtis was there, and I walked into the Philadelphia arena for my first television, and everybody's there, the roster's there, and Curtis got up and walked over to me and gave me a big hug. So automatically, I'm family. You know, I was immediately accepted.
Now, why did he like you?
Curtis? Well, we just, I was in Australia, and we all just got along.
You talked a bit about him to me. Can you talk a little bit about him here? Because I still need to do a deep dive on him, but you put him over as a tremendous talent.
King Curtis, for my money, is one of the greatest talents of all time.
Tell us why.
Reasons. First, let's go with the look. Let's go with the King Curtis Iakea look. King Curtis. Curtis was about 400 pounds. Hawaiian, black long hair, all back in a ponytail when he wanted it, or he'd let it come down, And he was all scarred up in his forehead like a monster. And he was very, very athletic. I mean, especially for a guy that, Curtis was even at 400 pounds, Curtis could surf. He was a surfer in Hawaii. Lord James Blears, these were big surfing people in Hawaii. And Curtis was a great surfer, played pro football, a little pro football, but nevertheless, he was instant. When I say instant, in the territory days, someone would go into the territory and say, okay, we're gonna run with this Corgan guy, and we're gonna try to get behind him and push him, and let's see how far we can push him. Let's see if he gets over. It may take him 2 months, 3 months before we can get him over. Curtis Iakea could get over in one night.
And tell us how.
One night. Example, Tampa, Florida, Mark Lewin, and they were like brothers from Australia for 10 years in Australia. Mark Lewin is in Tampa wrestling, and unannounced, while Lewin's in the ring wrestling somebody, whoever it was, unannounced, King Curtis comes down the aisle into the ring, and he turns that Mark Lewin around, and he gives him one of those steel chops, and another one, boom, and another one, boom, 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 and Lewin is gushing with blood, and the people are going crazy. It's being taped. He's over. Didn't take him 6 weeks. And his interview, there's never been another interviewer like him. You have to find it somewhere. You have to find it. I really wish I could do a King Curtis interview. I wish I could, but I'll try to give you a little bit. Now remember what he looks like, right? It's so unbelievable. Let's talk about Mark Lewin. Mark Lewin! I hate your filthy, stinking guts. 10,000 miles from Singapore, I found you. You ran from Sydney. You ran from wherever, right? New Zealand. But I found you, Lewin. And I'm taking you out, Lewin. And Curtis, Mark Lewin would come back, real straight face. King Curtis, I hate you and your steel chops. These two guys were money. They were magic. But the King Curtis interview, I've never seen anything like it. Probably never will be anything like it.
I need to do my deep dive.
You did do it?
No, I need to.
If you could, you're probably going to have to go to a network to find that stuff. I don't know where you find it.
This is a young man you might know. Terry Funk.
Oh, man, do I ever. Yeah, one of the all-time greats, Terry Funk. And Terry...
Former NWA World Heavyweight
Former
Champion.
NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
There he is with the 10 pounds of gold.
Tremendous champion.
This is a nice program. Christmas night, December 25th, 1975.
Wow.
So I love this stuff.
Wow. That's classic. Absolutely classic, yeah. Yeah, Terry Funk, one of the all-time greats. Absolutely. You can't... You can try to copy some people a little bit and mimic them a little bit, but you're not going to. And I've seen that too with Terry Funk. They try to take his stuff and his style, but you might forget about it. There's only one Terry Funk, and he was just absolutely awesome.
See, look at this here. I have to hold it carefully.
And so athletic.
If you look at this page here, this is the top contenders in 1975 for the NWA title. I'll flip it around and we can look at it.
Who are they?
Jack Briscoe, Super Destroyer, Fritz Von Erich, Jerry Briscoe, Giant Baba, Dick Murdoch, Holly Race, Andre the Giant, and Cyclone Negro.
Those are some pretty good contenders.
Not bad. They were doing all right.
Contenders, yeah.
They were doing all right.
This guy could go. Cyclone Negro could go. I mean, all of them could go.
Tell me, I don't know much about him. Tell me about him.
Brawler. He's Latino brawler. I mean, just a brawler, could box. I mean, great with his fists and brass, I think, like a brass knuckles type champion type guy. But, I mean, just really athletic, very physical, and very good.
Now, I know personally from our conversations that you're still close to Terry.
Yeah.
And you keep tabs on him.
Yeah.
Talk a little about, from a professional point of view, because obviously you have a lot of love for Terry as a man. But talk about Terry as a worker from your perspective.
Honestly, just one of the greatest of all time, because he could do anything. I mean, there was nothing that Terry couldn't do or wouldn't do or try. I mean, when you see a guy, even 50 years old, doing moonsaults, but everything he did was, it was so over the top. I mean, it really, really was. And he was just great. Some people are great at what they do, and others are trying to achieve greatness, but no matter what he did, and his psychology, phenomenal.
Did you have you faced Terry? I'm not sure. I don't know this. So I'm surprised I don't know this. Did you guys ever wrestle?
Yeah, one time out in Texas. I think it was Amarillo. Yeah, I think it was hometown. Yeah, I was.
Were you the heel coming in?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I was hot off of TBS. TBS, and I can remember tying it with Terry. We didn't talk about anything, really. We just tied up like two pit bulls, and I know his style. I mean, so, boy, get in there and get after it. I backed him into the ropes, and verbatim. I backed Terry into the ropes, and verbatim. Now, Terry Funk's a real deal bad mother. I mean, you want him to be your friend. He's a fighter. I mean, he's a real deal fighter. I backed him into the ropes, and verbatim he says, "Slap the shit out of me." Now I'm thinking very quickly, really? I mean, he slapped the shit out of me. Boy, I reared back, and I came from right field, because I knew that's what he wanted, and I gave it to him. This is before slap fighting was in vogue. I mean, I slapped the crap out of him. The people popped. I mean, just from that slap, the people in his hometown, he's a god there, right? They popped like, oh my God, you can't do that to Terry Funk. We had a tremendous match. Yeah.
Southeastern Championship Wrestling.
Yeah.
This looks like an autograph type of thing that they would have sold. We're giving out young Austin Idol. So, Bob Armstrong,
Yep.
Jimmy Golden, and Ron Fuller.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Ron Fuller. We tried to get Ron Fuller to come to our show in Knoxville. It didn't work out. Ron Fuller is one of those guys, very unique promo, obviously very skilled professional wrestler.
Very.
Talk about Ron Fuller a bit.
Yeah, Ron, he's a great guy. He's very, very smart. Very smart. He's a tremendous entrepreneur. And he's a funny guy. He can tell you stories for probably years and years and years because he's done so much and he has so many stories. He was a great promoter. He really, really was. Now, I worked.
Now, it was Knoxville and that whole territory, right?
Well, yeah, but see, he bought the Panhandle of Florida, Alabama area.
Oh, so he was down there, yeah.
Yeah, so he had two at one time, but he saw where the focus was, and that was down in the Pensacola, Florida, Birmingham, Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama, Dothan, Alabama. You know, those little towns, Panama City, Beach, and Ron came there, and these not me, but these guys were part of his crew because those guys went way back in buddies. Matter of fact,
right.
The first time I went there was Louis Tillett was given the book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Louis, and then Louis asked me if I would come there.
So was
Was it Southeastern then?
Yeah, Southeastern. Was that Ron's territory?
Yes, it was. But before that, it was Gulf Coast.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Gulf Coast Championship Wrestling. Then he figured it out. So we need to expand our brand, and instead of just being Gulf Coast, let's go a little.
Do you remember coming in on this stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah.
how were you being booked in this at this time?
Well, I was.
Because this is kind of the period where you're floating a lot, right?
Oh yeah.
If you want to talk about that.
Kind of like always. Yeah, I'm floating a lot. I was off of. I already had the TBS exposure, so that really was my thing. Because I was on TBS and I was over, so I was able to cut for that time a pretty good deal to go there, and they knew me from Austin, Iowa, from TBS, the Superstation. So I mean, I was already over. That was a beautiful thing about that. Mm-hmm. You go somewhere, you're already over without even.
Trust me, I know.
When
I was on TV a lot, it's very interesting.
To say the least, it's very interesting. So I was already over. Ended up having a tremendous run there because when.
Do you remember some of the programs you worked down there?
Yeah. I mean, a ton of them. Either as a bad guy, as a heel.
But pick a program just to talk about. Because at this point, you're sort of an independent.
I'm an independent.
So you're only going to go in and do business if you like where it's going and.
Oh yeah, and plus, I mean, I had the opportunity. They pretty much gave me. I mean, I had a voice.
Okay.
I had a voice with Ron Fuller. Mm-hmm. So I mean, and he was really great about that. Very smart about that. He would listen because if I had ideas, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do
great.
it. I mean, I did stuff with Ric Flair. I mean, but not programs, but they're always good business. But everybody that went through there, if I saw them coming in and I saw money, I'd go to Ron. Let me have him.
Give me a name, just so I have a little bit of sense of it.
There was a guy there that really, more than likely, wouldn't have done anything really, but he was a big guy and he was working some kind of a Russian thing, Boris Zukov, and he did the voice kind of like an Ivan Koloff type thing, so he had that down really good. And when I saw him, I said, he's a big guy, he's got that Russian thing going, and at that time, I believe, we had this thing with Russia about wheat. I think it was a wheat thing, with exporting wheat or whatever, and I said to Ron, I want to do something with this guy, and we'll get into like a little political thing, agricultural thing about the wheat thing, who's supplying the wheat, whatever. And we'll do something where this guy attacks me from behind and he comes off the top rope with a 100-pound sack of wheat. And we're off and running with USA. bang. You know, I mean, just so many guys. Bob Armstrong. Well, heck, Ron Fuller. Ron, a heck of a thing with him. This guy here. I mean, everybody there that meant anything.
So it wasn't a big roster, so it was...
No, it wasn't a big roster, but you know what? The business was crazy.
Really? This would have been around what era?
Well, 80, I guess, 80-ish,
Yeah.
80, yeah, 80-ish, maybe early.
Yeah.
Yeah, but their business for that area was nuts. And we're home every night, and the beaches were beautiful.
Not a bad thing.
That was great.
Here's an NWA wrestling program from April 12th, 1972.
72.
If you focus here on the card here, this is the wrestling card. And we'll see a name that we all know and recognize.
No, and hate.
Was Iron Mike a bad guy here?
Oh, Iron Mike was a good guy.
Okay, so let's talk about the card first.
Okay.
I want you to, obviously I'm not asking you to recall the specific matches, but feel free to associate.
Yeah.
So here's the top of the card. Jack Briscoe, Florida champ,
Yep.
versus Tim Woods.
Right.
They fought to a draw.
Okay.
Anything you want to?
Well, I can understand that. I mean, you have two guys. Matter of fact, Tim Woods was a legitimate amateur wrestler, I think, out of Michigan. He was a state champion. I mean, he was a legit guy.
Right.
So you had these two. There we go, back to Florida. Credibility, shooters.
Okay. Brass Knuckles title match. Do you remember they had a Brass Knuckles title?
Yep, I love those.
Do you?
Brass knucks?
Okay, wait. I've always thought the brass knucks thing was very weird. Explain that to me.
Well, I mean,
because it's not in the business anymore.
Too bad. Too bad. Bring it back. You put the.
Did you do those matches?
Did I do them?
Yeah.
Oh, I've done all those matches. But just imagine, you know, brass knucks are brass knucks. They're real. Put on the brass knucks. Both of us gonna fight. We're both wearing brass knucks.
Oh man.
We're talking about violence, right?
Oh yeah.
Two big things that sell: sex and violence.
Not necessarily in that order.
Not necessarily in that order.
So Bearcat Wright, who was your NWA Florida Brass Knuckles champion,
man.
faced the great Malenko,
Yeah.
and Bearcat Wright went over.
Okay. Yeah.
Any memories there, Bearcat Wright?
Absolutely. I rode with Bearcat from Tampa 2 or 3 occasions to Tallahassee, which is about 250 miles. And he was a jazz guy. He loved jazz. And I'm trying, Thelonious Monk?
Of course.
Yeah, he loved the Monk. Well, for me at my age, you know, the Monk was a little too abstract for me.
Yeah.
At my age then, you know, I didn't get it too much. But that's what we're going to listen to, 250 up and 250 back.
Oh my God. You must have got out of your mind.
A little bit wacko, and then I think I rode with him 2 times. He asked me to go again.
And you were sober, so
I said, I can't do it again. You know.
Bob Roop and Ron Fuller, who we were just talking about.
Yep.
Versus the Challenger. I don't know this name. The Challenger and the Professional.
No clue.
Interesting, right?
Yeah, no clue.
Bob Roop and Ron Fuller went over on a DQ.
Huh.
Okay. Paul Jones, who we talked about
Yep.
as well, versus Johnny Walker.
Yeah, that would have been a great match. Had to be. Yeah, both very athletic, good wrestlers. They were good wrestlers.
Paul Jones went over.
Yeah.
The Great Mephisto
Frankie Kane.
versus Dennis McCord.
Frankie Kane.
That's you.
That
by
was
the way.
me, that punk kid.
The Great Mephisto went over on you on
He would have
April
anyway.
12th, 1972.
And he would have anyway if he wanted to. You know the
Tell
story?
us about the Great Mephisto a little bit.
Very intelligent, extremely intelligent guy. You talk about creativity, I mean, out the wazoo. And this was a man's man. He wasn't a big guy, but he was one tough mother. He was a boxer. He fought as a young boy in the carnivals.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
okay.
Well, you bring up whoever to fight the guy. Well, he was a boxer, a fighter. He knocked out Roy Shires, the promoter in San Francisco. Yeah, they got in some kind of a deal, And I remember Frankie telling me the story that, it was headlines all across the country about what Frankie punched Roy Shire.
Really?
Punched him right in the nose. Right in the nose. Something happened, and boy, Frankie just didn't take any guff from anybody.
Okay.
But
last match on the card. So
Yeah.
you weren't the curtain jerker. You were second. The Alaskans, managed by George Harris, versus Greg Peterson and Duke
Kimoka.
Kimoka.
Duke Kimoka, he owned 10% of the office.
Okay.
So yeah, and I rode a few times.
Do you remember the Alaskans?
Very well.
Really?
Very well.
Tell me about the Alaskans.
Oh, they.
Were they working like a Quebecers type
Alaskans
gimmick?
type thing, and they were always, when you saw them on the street, they always had their stuff on. They had
Really?
They had the black and red lumberjack shirts on, black hair back and everything. Mike York was one, and Frank Monte. Mike York and Frank Monte, yeah, I got that from somewhere. But they were, Mike York in particular, just a way far out personality who was a lot of fun.
So let's freeze time for a second, because I'm, as you know, I'm very interested in the territorial kind of office at that time.
Okay.
So, in this case, you're booked against the Great Mephisto. It was on a Wednesday night, the show. So when would you find out that you were facing him? The day of the show, or when you show up at the venue?
For me, being a jabroni, I would find out that night when I just show up. I was just happy to be booked.
And who would tell you the finish? The ref?
No.
Did you guys have split locker rooms?
Well, most of the time we did. I mean, in Florida.
But how would you find out the finish, or did you just know? You didn't have to be told.
Oh, well, depends. Depends. Louis Tillett was typically the guy on the road who was the booker.
Or would Louis pull you aside and tell you?
He'd sit you down, two guys.
Okay. So just pull you aside. Okay, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, just you get a little corner, pull up two chairs, and here's what we want to do.
And a match like that, being second on a card like that, how long would a match like that go?
For probably 7 minutes.
Right.
Because, I'm still green as grass. They're not gonna let
You're not even Mike McCord, you're Dennis McCord.
I'm just a punk kid, I'm still, can't spell my name. Kind of like now. But I change it about every 3 months.
When did you first watch professional wrestling? Do you remember, kind of what year?
Had to be high school. Well,
just give me a rough year.
I'm gonna go. I'm probably, I don't know, 66, 7.
Okay, so how aware were you in the 60s of the legacy of wrestling in the 50s? Because obviously what we now consider modern wrestling really started on television in the 50s.
Yeah, I really wasn't.
So you didn't have much knowledge. When you got into the business, and of course you would cross paths with different people.
Right.
Legends of the past. For your generation.
Yeah.
Were there any legends that you met that stick out in your mind, or did you have a set, as you grew to know the history, particularly the NWA, did you find you had respect for it, or you just didn't care because it had nothing to do with you, or what was your kind of perspective on it?
Total respect. Total respect, because you find out about this era that was so big. It was national television, and you had, they were drawing in, you well know, some huge houses, right?
Oh, yeah. Mildred Burke used to do houses of 14,000 people as a main event, as a female in the 50s.
There you go.
And this would be one of her opponents at times, Mae Young, who, of course, WWE fans know from her success literally through her whole life with the WWE, but this is her as a very fetching young female wrestler.
That was an era that was unbelievable. The names of Buddy Rogers, Pat O'Connor.
Did you, any legends of the past, so let's say like 50s legends, did you encounter any of those guys or girls? You must have at least come across some of them at shows.
I would see
even if it was just a handshake type of thing.
I would see people like, all kinds of celebrities, really. It was like a cross-section of celebrities. Hey, I'm the Bronx Bomber in Boston, Joe Louis.
Not bad.
Come on. He was there to referee one night. Muhammad Ali. Yeah, Muhammad Ali, he did the little levitation thing with his foot. You know, you look at it, you say, how do you do that, you know? I mean, some of the names, I mean, boxers, Archie Moore, I mean, golly, it's just...
But specifically to 50s or 40s wrestling legends, do you remember meeting anybody?
I'm just trying to think if I ever really crossed paths with any of them. You know, I mean, going back that far, I just really don't recall.
It's weird, and making it about myself for a second, there are times where I'll see somebody on television or see somebody in a book or magazine, and I'm reading about them, and I'm like, oh, I met them. Because I met them for 5 seconds, you know, shook somebody's hand. It's amazing to me how many people I met that I don't remember meeting unless I have to almost kind of think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's such a blur because you're working, right?
Yeah.
And when you're working, it's sort of a different...
And then it might come to you later. So, oh, that's right. What about him? You know, what about him? But
okay, here's a gentleman. Now, this program is, not sure when it's from, but this gentleman on the left is holding the 10 pounds of gold. We might recognize him a little bit. And somebody you were in the ring with a few times. Ric Flair.
Yes, sir.
Ric Flair, the Nature Boy.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the Nature Boy.
You know,
can I jump in real quick before you say that?
Please do.
It was a lovely thing because at NWA 73,
which
Rick was on the show with us.
I remember.
He cut a very memorable promo.
Yes, he did.
In the middle of the show, and of course, one of my favorite memories was before the show. I asked Rick who he'd wrestled at the Chase.
Yeah.
And he listed off this who's who of Hall of Famers, of course.
Right.
And then he said to me, as only Rick could, he said, "What do you want me to say?"
Right.
And I said, "You're Ric Flair. You say whatever you want."
Say what you want.
And he said, "Really?" And I said, "You say whatever you want."
Absolutely.
And he did.
Yeah.
And he did. And it was beautiful. I loved it.
Yeah, it was great.
I loved it. But talk about Ric Flair as a talent.
Oh,
Here
was
you
amazing.
are in your prime, wrestling Ric Flair in his prime.
Yeah, it was amazing. You know, and we both were. You know, our mission for that night was just to make this thing great. You know.
Now that you're talking about the faux title switch.
The faux title, well, that was one occasion, because I wrestled him a few times.
Yeah.
Know? But that was, that was a great one.
Because there are pictures of you that you could find on the internet of you holding the 10 pounds of gold.
I know it. Boom,
with
the
with the dusty finish, right?
Right, exactly, yeah. But and that was the people.
But they took it away from you.
Yeah, they took it away. But the people exploded because, and I promised, we were hot off TV. We do TV on Saturday in Dothan, Alabama, and then run Dothan that night. So you're hot off television.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's a big deal, right? So I knew what was going to happen. So I promised I was going to beat him for that belt. Well, we're sold out, you know, sold out, and so I did. But they got it back. I got robbed.
What was the technicality that they took it back from you on?
The technicality was that the referee got clipped. The referee got clipped, and when he did, I somehow had my back to the ropes, and Flair ran at me to charge me, and all I did was duck down, and Flair went out over the top.
Oh, they claim you threw him over, and
yeah, so Flair,
old NWA rules.
Yeah, so Flair goes.
You got DQ'd.
Flair goes over the top, you know, and we're still going, and Flair gets up on the apron, and I get him from the outside and give him a vertical suplex in, right? Meantime, boom, the referee, boom, referee goes 1, 2, 3, the place explodes. They go over and give me the belt, you know, and I'm like this. Second referee comes down and says, no, 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 no. He threw him over the top. People are going berserk. No, 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 he didn't. And I'm looking here, and I'm on the second turnbuckle.
That's a good angle. I mean,
it worked all day
not that
long.
I didn't want you to get the belt, but that's good.
It worked all day long, and it did, you know, and we had return matches.
But talk about Ric Flair in his prime we've all, if you're a fan, of course, you've gone and watched some of those matches with Steamboat and stuff like that.
Right.
But here you are in the ring, you know, with what is now obviously a living legend.
Yeah, of course.
Not that you're not one
yourself.
yourself.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sure, right, yeah.
No, but Rick has transcended the professional wrestling business
No doubt
in a way
about
that
it.
very few people ever have.
No doubt.
I mean, he's
Fact.
He's one of those great American stories.
Can't argue that.
And he also was in a plane crash.
I know it.
Crazily enough.
Yeah.
But talk about him, because I, you know, everybody likes the sort of like the shiny part of the headline. I'm very interested in, you're in the ring with Ric Flair, not Ric Flair the legend, Ric Flair the champion.
Yeah, we're just wrestling. I mean,
right. So put me there before the hype. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's the cool thing about it is if you have people who know what they're doing, obviously, I mean they're pretty well schooled and they know what they're doing. You don't have to really tell them much. You don't have to tell them much. There's nothing to tell them.
Did you guys call a lot of stuff in the ring?
No, not much. Didn't need to.
You just
Fighting.
went out and worked.
Fighting.
I love that.
He was a technical. He was really a very good technical wrestler. I was okay, but that was not my thing. My thing was psychology. It was psychology. I mean, yeah, I could get holds and do all that stuff. I mean, I never threw a drop kick ever.
Really?
No. I mean, why? What do I need? Rather than throw a drop kick, I'd rather.
When you went down to 220, you didn't.
I'd rather punch you in the mouth. Boom. What are the people, when people come to the wrestling matches, what do they really want to see? They want to see a fight. That's what they want to see. Show me a fight. Give me a fight. Yeah, I mean, we can go out and I'll headlock you and take you over and you leg scissor me and I'll kick out and I'll jump up and you give me 3 arm drags. I'll scoot out on the bottom rope on the floor. But, you know, punch me in the mouth. Punch me back. They want to see a fight. We're fighters.
So in this magazine here,
yeah,
this is from November 22nd, 1981.
November 22nd. Okay.
Let's go through this card. 90-minute time limit.
Wow.
So they were obviously getting heat for all the 60 Broadways.
Yeah.
Ric Flair versus Tommy Rich. Ric Flair is the champion.
Great.
Columbus, Ohio. Ole Anderson and the Superstar versus Michael Hayes and Wrestling 2.
Good.
Not bad.
Good.
The Great Kabuki.
Yeah.
Managed by Playboy Gary Hart.
Yeah.
Versus Bruno Sammartino Jr.
Okay.
Bob Armstrong versus Terry Gordy.
That's card stacked.
What a card.
Stacked.
Are you kidding me?
Stacked.
People wonder why they did good business.
Stacked.
And here's your opening match. El Grande Apollo versus Austin Idol.
I'm the opener. Thank you very much. Who was booking? Ole? I must have had heat with Ole.
You must have.
I'm the curtain jerker, right?
Look at that. But what a card.
Yeah, it's a heck of a card.
What a card.
Yeah, Columbus,
I think
Ohio.
that's oftentimes lost in the sort of the, you know, the gray of history. That and the reason that WWF and ultimately WCW had so much success, it was the success of the territorial systems.
Yeah.
That gave great talents like yourself the opportunity to work, figure out who you were. So when it went to that bigger national platform, particularly in the 90s,
yeah,
you had so many great workers.
Oh, yeah, and you had the ability to stack those cards. You know, because you had, in those territories, you didn't have that big of a roster. So everything had to matter. I mean,
everything.
That first match had to have some meaning.
Okay, so walk us through that. I'm not saying that you're going to remember that this particular night. But here you are in Columbus, Ohio. You're hot. The company's hot. The TV's hot. I mean, obviously TBS is doing shows. Georgia Championship Wrestling is doing shows up in Ohio. So whatever you guys are doing is working.
Well, Columbus was the first town they ran.
Okay, but still, but
yeah.
It's Columbus. I mean, it's,
yeah.
It's not down the road from you know. It's not on Peachtree and Peachtree in Atlanta, you know.
No. But
that's the joke we always tell in the band.
Yeah.
Where you staying? At Peachtree and Peachtree, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which Peachtree?
Yeah. Did you really?
Okay, but take me through that. You're in a hot company. Look at that roster. Look at that card.
And who am I wrestling?
You gonna make me do this again?
Well, I just forgot. You know, it's a memory failure.
Can you remember?
One day you'll see.
Okay.
You'll see.
I'm not there yet, buddy. El Grande Apollo.
The Great Apollo.
Do you remember?
No, no. So I don't.
Okay, but let's pretend you remember.
Okay, we'll pretend it. So, does it make any? I mean, you know,
Jobber number one. You're curtain jerking on a house show.
Yeah. So, does it matter to me? No. Not at all. I mean, you were talking about egos now. Doesn't matter to me. I mean, you're there. You're there. You know you're going to make money. Does it really matter? No. And I don't know how long I had been at TBS when they did that thing.
Well, that's 81.
Or I could have been on my way out.
Maybe you're on your way out.
I bet I was on my way out.
NWA fans, get ready to see the ultimate pro wrestling spectacle live. Join us Tuesday, January 31st for NWA Powerrr, live from the Knoxville Convention Center. Saturday, February 11th, don't miss NWA Nuff Said on pay-per-view, coming to you live from the Egypt Shrine Center in Tampa. But that's not all. Mark your calendars for 2 back-to-back Powerrr tapings. It's WEDU Studios in Tampa, Florida, Sunday, February 12th and Monday, February 13th. See World Champion Tyrus, World Women's Champion Camille, EC3, Matt Cardona, and many more of today's top talents as they battle it out for dominance in the ring. Don't miss out on all the action. Visit NWATix.com for tickets and order NWA Nuff Said on FITE TV today. The National Wrestling Alliance. Wrestling as it's meant to be.
Couple more walks down memorabilia lane. Ole Anderson.
Yep.
And Stan Hansen. Did you ever face Stan Hansen?
Yes, I did.
He was physical, right?
Yes, he was. Yeah, he
very physical.
Yes, he was. And
did you enjoy it, or
being hurt? No, I don't enjoy pain. You know, I'm one of those freaks that don't enjoy pain.
There's that great line. There's a Woody Allen movie where he says, "I'm allergic to violence. I break out in blood."
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that. And Stan and I were partners in Japan one time.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, we were partners.
So talk about working with Stan. I'm a big fan of Stan, just as a fan watching.
Yeah, I love Stan Hansen, and to this day we're buddies. So Stan, prior to going to Japan, Stan was like an American type wrestling style. He was great. I mean, he was great. Once he got to Japan and really started beating people up, I mean, very physical, then when he got back to the States and would just work a little here and a little there because Japan became his mainstay. That was his primary. Then it was a different animal because he really couldn't shift very, very well. And I remember one night we're in Memphis. I'm over in Memphis. I mean, that's my bread and butter. Stan and Jesse Ventura come in for the night. Lawler told me, he says, I'm going to bring in Stan Hansen and Jesse Ventura. I said, you work with Stan. He said, oh, no. You're wrestling Hansen. I'm wrestling Ventura. I said, oh, gee, what a surprise, right? So Stan comes in, and he just got back from Japan, too, to make it worse. I said, Stan, listen, and we're buddies. This is my bread and butter. You can't go out there and murder me. You'll kill me. You'll kill me. And, you know, this is my money. Oh, it's okay. I got it. He beat me half to death. Not to hurt me, but he was just
working that Japanese.
The Japanese way. He beat me half to death. After that was over, back in the dressing room, Stan, you just killed my business. I just got through talking to you. So what are you doing out there? He said, oh, man, I'm sorry. I said, well, you can't do that, man. Jeez, you can't do that.
Well, why this was happening in the ring? Do you say anything? Do you do anything?
What are you going to say? The guy's a madman. He's a friggin' mad. He's like a madman. Honest to goodness, he's like a wild animal.
It comes across.
He's beating me.
You watch some of that Japanese stuff? I think there's one where it's him and Brody, and they're just, oh my God.
It's brutal. But we did come back and wrestle more, and then he was like a prince.
Okay.
He understood it. He got it. Yeah, and he got it. And we had great matches. Yeah, but overcoming that first one.
Let's throw out a couple names here. Kevin Sullivan.
Kevin Sullivan, hate him. Kidding. That's just tradition, right? Yeah, Kevin. I like Kevin Sullivan, and Kevin and I had a tremendous run in Atlanta, and where no one thought that it would ever happen, but we did.
As a fan, when I was young and I would see Kevin, I didn't totally get it, but he always had a sort of a charisma that was very different than everybody else's. What was your perception of that?
Well, when he first came to Atlanta, he was just the Boston Battler, Kevin Sullivan.
Yeah.
And I was leaving from Dothan, Alabama, the Fuller territory, to go to Atlanta. Now I'm going in to work. And Kevin had come in from Knoxville, where Fuller was, and so he was in Dothan, that area. I'm leaving. And Kevin and I hit it off. We became good buddies. So I said, well, I'm going to Atlanta. He says, man, I wish I was going. I said, well, he said, well, you put a word in it. So let me get there. Let me see what I can do. Let me get there. And then I got there and things were going well. And then Kevin and I were talking and we came up with an idea. And it turned out to be a tremendous idea. And I pitched it. I had to pitch it a couple times before Ole Anderson would go with it because he didn't want to use him. Too small.
That was always the thing, right? Because he always seemed to be booked higher on the card than his size would indicate.
Yeah, see, Ole, too small. I said, Ole, it's not about size. Size has nothing to do with this. It's the personal issue.
Well, what was the angle, real quick?
Kevin would, for about 4 or 5 weeks, Kevin would send in a very short clip that would air on Saturday mornings on TBS. And I would be out there with Gordon, and Gordon would say, what's going on between you and Kevin Sullivan? And I would say, who's Kevin Sullivan? He said, well, he knows you. If you don't, I said, I've never even heard of the guy. He said, well, we've got a little short thing he's sending, and maybe like you to listen to it, Mr. Idol. I said, that's fine. And I mean, like 15 seconds, and Kevin Sullivan would say, Idol, you know what you did, and you owe me. That's it. Next week, same thing. He may change up a little bit, but you know what you did, you owe me. You know. So after about 4 or 5 weeks, I finally confessed, Gordon, I do know him.
I remember.
I do know him. Yeah, I was at the airport one day. Yeah, he was the sky king. He grabbed my bags. And took. Yeah, now I remember that guy. But when he came in, eventually the thing is that I broke his brother's leg.
Okay.
That's why I owed him. I broke his brother's leg in an amateur wrestling match in Boston. We're wrestling together against each other, but then I put the figure for the Las Vegas leg and break his leg. We're off and running, and this thing got way out of control. I mean, it got so hot. Honestly, it got so hot that the stations around the state, they were calling in and saying, you got to back these guys down, cool them off. I mean, it got really hot.
Were you censors or
we didn't get
too violent?
Oh, extreme violence on the promos. Oh, blowing nobody else. All the boys would become mesmerized when Sullivan and I would cut promos against each other. Yeah, and the Exorcist.
That's good when you could pop the locker room.
And when the Exorcist thing had come out, and Sullivan would say, "Idol, we're going to see the welts across your belly. Help me, help!" Oh gosh, I mean, you know, we're in Bible Belt. I mean,
all right. Couple more things. This gentleman you might know as well, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. I know
yes, I do.
You guys crossed paths many times.
Yeah. Dusty Rhodes. I mean, only one American Dream.
This is interesting because I haven't heard people talk about this much. Dusty's transition from tag team wrestler to solo star to booker.
Yeah.
You encountered him as solo star and then as a booker.
Not as a booker.
You never worked with him as a booker?
No. See, and Dusty had a tremendous luxury. I mean, yeah, he was extremely talented, very talented. He got over and drew nothing but money in Florida, and obviously a very smart guy. But, you know, Dusty's sitting in between Eddie Graham and Louis Tillett. I mean, you're at Harvard. And plus, he's creative himself. He's a smart guy. But when you have these two brilliant people, you know, and you're all together feeding off each other, I mean, that was great. It was great for Dusty.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody could experience that, to be able to get all that information that nobody knows it.
Yeah, he might be the greatest testament to the fact that if the public loves you or connects with you, the other things that seem to be so important, particularly in 2022 world, 17-star matches and all this stuff. He's the perfect example of did nothing but draw money. You go watch that stuff, you hardly call them mat classics, but they're always compelling.
Yeah, and I'll go back to this. This is default. You have to, I don't care who you are, rock star, whoever you are, you have to engage you got to engage these people. You got to connect with them. I'm a son of a plumber. Well,
Oh, yeah.
you know, we're talking about blue collar here now. You know, you got to connect with them, and you have to be smart enough to know how to connect with your audience. And once you do that, they're going to be behind you all the way. They're going to be behind you all the way. And Dust was really, really good at that. But that's the key.
Last one here. Now, this is before my time, but this is the world that I grew up in. At least this is, I oftentimes tell people, this is still NWA, but I grew up when this sort of turned more into an AWA territory. This is from 1960.
Wow. That's an oldie. That is an oldie.
This magazine, Bob Luce, was the face, the promotion. The promotion in Chicago, starting around the late 60s, was owned by Bob Luce, but he was a front guy for Dick the Bruiser and Vern Gagne, because you had, in order to own the Chicago territory, you had to be an Illinois resident. It was actually Bob Luce, Fred Kohler came up with the idea of using free promotional magazines to sell. And that's what began this incredible run of success in Chicago. And of course, Dick the Bruiser was the big star in Chicago.
Right.
And that's why I wanted to ask you a little bit about your understanding of let's say wrestling in the 50s and 60s, because where I grew up in Chicago, the legacy of what those guys had built in the 50s and 60s had carried over into the 70s. So you were aware of it even if you didn't see it.
Right.
So when I see this stuff, it's like I feel like I'm there even though I wasn't there. Look at the names on the front of this magazine: Kiniski, Bruiser, Bockwinkel, Sheik, and Blassie, just to name a few names. And you wonder why these guys drew money.
They're Hall of Famers, man. These guys are legit Hall of Famers. Yeah.
Here you go. Chicago Amphitheater draws all-time record gate. 10,000 people at the amphitheater. $31,000, which doesn't sound like much, but back then that was a lot of money.
Yeah, but 10,000 people. That's
and
a lot of people.
And I think you know this. I bought the wrestling memorabilia of Bob Luce, who was the promoter when I was a kid, and I have a plaque in my office. They sold out the International Amphitheater, which a sellout was about 14,000. They sold that thing out about 253 months in a row or something. Crazy amount of.
I got a little trivia for you. Do you know who Dory Funk Jr. defeated for the NWA World's Heavyweight title?
I should know that, but I don't.
Gene Kiniski.
Ah, right.
And you know how he beat him?
Mm-mm.
Imagine this. 3 consecutive body slams.
Different world.
Way different world. 3 consecutive body slams and pins him for the world's title.
I don't want to name the agent, but I was in the control room when we were shooting NWA television.
Yeah.
And one of the wrestlers gave somebody a pretty stiff German suplex.
Yeah.
And of course the wrestler kicked out, and the agent in the room said, "Oh, we're kicking out of Germans now." Because in the world that wrestler grew up in.
Same with the pile driver. Pile driver, classic example. Classic example.
You took a few of those from Jerry Lawler?
I took a couple of them, not too many of them, but I mean, I think maybe I mentioned this the first time the Road Warriors came into Memphis. What really, the people exploded. Lawler picks up the animal, no hawk, gives him a pile driver. Boom, people explode. Lawler turns around, turns his back, yay! Well, he pops right back up. Lawler doesn't know it because his back is turned to him, and I can see it. I'm telling Lawler, look out behind you. Look. People exploded because they didn't sell it. Well, that was always a finish, you know.
So take us home. I've enjoyed talking to you. Thank you for sharing these memories, and hopefully we'll do more. I mean,
yeah, I love it.
There's a lot of stuff. I mean, we've probably covered 5% of what you've seen and been around.
Yeah, we can go.
But take us home as only you can.
Well, first of all, it's been a pleasure. It's been great. It's great to reminisce, and you know, especially when you're asking questions and things that you're not thinking about all the time, or maybe for a long time, and you see the names and you hear about the examples and the instances, and what do you think about this guy and why was he so good, or what do you? It's really a great flashback. It's a really a wonderful. For me, it tells me where I've been. You know, sometimes we forget where we've been, how we got here. We know how we got there, but it just...
You've had quite the journey.
It brings... Oh, God. I'm still going.
You're still going?
I'm still going. I ain't done.
Idol Media Sports Management, 3 champions.
Yeah, I ain't
as we
done.
speak here.
Yeah, I ain't done.
Jesus talking big about a 4th title. Every time he gets a microphone, he talks about how he wants that junior heavyweight championship.
Well, how can you have enough gold? Right? You can't. You got Fort Knox. No. It's Fort Idol. That's where the gold is. Fort Idol. Fort Idol.
Thanks for joining us on NWA Presents. We'll be having more conversations in the future. Don't forget, we've got our big live NWA Powerrr coming your way January 31st from the Knoxville Convention Center. Details and tickets available at nwatix.com. I'm Joe Galley. Have a pleasant evening.